Hey guys, welcome back to the American Dream Podcast. I'm here with a very, very special guest, my brother, Joe Jordan, CEO and founder of SIRO. Thank you so much for coming, man. I know you flew from New York to here. That's a crazy flight. Was it like 4 or 5 hours, something like that?
Yeah, 3.5, something like that, yeah.
Well, I know before, I guess we started live, I was talking to you about how impressed I am with, someone of your caliber and your age and your determination and the way, pretty much what you created, and in essence, It's very impressive. And I don't think we've had anyone as young as yourself in this show yet. Hopefully we do get more younger entrepreneurs involved in the show. But having said that, I guess for anyone that doesn't know Joe, how would you kind of sum up your trajectory from when you started as a kid to where you are now?
Yeah. Well, first I'll say it's my pleasure to be here, so I appreciate your inviting me out.
Thank you for coming, man.
Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, I guess it probably where it makes sense to start is where I got started in sales, because where I got started in sales is really what sort of like kick-started a ball that just never really stopped rolling. I got started in sales selling Cutco knives to moms.
Oh, really?
I got a letter in the mail, and it looked like it would be better on my resume than camp counselor. So I decided to try it. Didn't expect to be good at it or to like it, but both ended up happening. So I finished like number 2 out of 80 reps in the office that summer, and made way more money than I would have as a camp counselor. But the biggest thing that I took away from that summer was 2 things. One was a willingness to bet on myself, and 2, I knew how to sell by the end of that summer.
How old were you?
Let's see, that was my freshman summer in college, so I would have been 19.
Okay.
Yeah. And from there, I got invited back to become a manager, where again, the numbers said we did really well. Like we finished top 2% of sales teams in the company. We were top 10 in the nation in new business out of like 500-600. Funny enough, the manager who was number 1 that year is now also on the SIRO team.
Oh, wow.
But I didn't get as much out of that summer because I felt like I couldn't help a single one of my reps sell more than I had. We had 186 people come through the door. Not one of them sold more than I had the previous summer. And a lot of them left with a bad taste in their mouth. Like a third of them sold nothing. Most of them, I think the average tenure was like a month. Most of them quit and never came close to their potential and came away with like a willingness to bet on themselves or really knowing how to sell. And at this point, like I would trade my business degree for just that experience learning how to sell and those 2 takeaways, because I use that more in my day-to-day today, way more than I use my business degree. So that's where the original idea for SIRO sort of started. It was like if they're not selling, they're making like 2 or 3 simple mistakes that we can easily correct if we can catch them, if we know which one they're making. So the original idea was, hey, what if we could record the conversation and bookmark the places where those like 2-3 mistakes would happen, so that we can shrink the conversation down from an hour to just 5 minutes. And we can just go through and figure out which mistake each person was making, catch and correct it, and hopefully help a lot more people get out of it what I got out of it. Because again, there's no way I'd be able to do what I'm doing now without it. And so that's sort of where the idea for SIRO started. How I met like my co-founder was through like working on software for Cutco, and we teamed up on this and never looked back.
So when you're using the application that you guys created, in essence, you're perfecting the sales pitch, right? What's the science behind that when it comes to perfecting the sales pitch?
Yeah. So it's crazy because the science that's underlying our application has been improving even since we started the company. I mean, we started it just like late 2020. Didn't have like really users on it until 2021. Since then, like the first thing we do with the audio is we transcribe it. Since we started, like the error rate of state-of-the-art transcription was cut in half and then cut in half again. So the underlying technology's improved a ton and will continue to improve. But the gist of it is record the conversations, transcribe it, analyze like those results, and there's a couple different analyses that we'll run. First off, we'll like bookmark some of the key moments. So like, where are you covering pricing? Where are you closing? Asking for referrals, getting objections, so on and so forth. Then we'll also measure things like how fast are you talking? Are you pitching up? Are you uptoning? Are you dominating the conversation? Or are you getting the customer to talk? How interactive are you? Are you using words that the customer may not understand? So these sorts of things, and we can sort of combine them into a holistic picture of like, where are you killing it and where do you need work? And that's the high level overview of how the tech works.
So before you got into, I guess, creating the perfect AI system that could achieve that, obviously, when you're in your sales era, there's a lot of trial and error. Before you kind of, so talk to me through that. Obviously now you're at where you're at, but in terms of obstacles, you know, people, let's say someone's watching this, they're in sales, they're like, man, I suck, dude. Like, maybe it could be cars or it could be whatever. What moments have you kind of gone through in your life where you're like, man, you know, okay, this is how I can fix this, or man, this sucks, let me surpass this moment?
Yeah, for sure. So I guess the talents that I started with in sales were like, I'm a good listener. And I studied computer science and business. So the computer science part of it like trained my brain to break down like complex things into a bunch of little tiny simple things, because that's how you program. Like, you can't just teach a computer to make a button, to tell a computer to make a button. Like, you go in and individually, this pixel has to be this and this pixel has to be this. You break down something large into a bunch of small steps. And so I was really good at listening and then breaking down the customer's needs, breaking down the customer's objections so that I could handle them. But I did not start out as confident. I didn't start out like understanding how to close someone. I didn't start out like understanding how to like build rapport quickly. So a lot of those things just came through trying it. But you asked for specific examples of like, okay, I ran into something and I figured out how to fix it. So I'll give one example of this was my close rate was really high even when I first started. My average order was small. It was below the company average. So I was selling a lot of pieces as opposed to like sets. So Cutco like is kitchen knives, plus they'll do like pots and pans, stuff like that. I would sell like 2 knives here, 3 knives there, but like it took me forever to sell my first basic set, which like has like 10 pieces in it. So my manager showed me a video of one of his former reps who had the highest average order in the company at the time. My average order was like $250. His average order was over $1,000.
Oh wow!
So like 4 times my average.
Was his closing rate lower though, or higher, or was it around the same?
Closing rate was probably similar.
Okay.
There were aspects of it. Like one aspect was he just networked into wealthier like leads, but the other part of it was the way that he presented everything. So there were a couple of simple things that he did. Number one was, as opposed to selling the value of each individual piece so that customers could latch onto individual pieces, he just sold the value of the set. And he never mentioned like until like the end, if he really had to, that you could even buy individual pieces. And he sort of changed the name of the sets too. So like we had the ultimate set, the signature set, and the homemaker set, and then a bunch of starter sets after that. And if I sold a set, I was selling a starter set. But the way he presented it was, it's not ultimate, signature, homemaker, it's chef, family, and basic. And so it was a lot simpler for the customer, and most customers at the end of his pitch felt like the basic or the family set was the right one for them. And then it was just a matter of making the numbers make sense. And there were a couple of little one-liners and analogies in there that he used. So I started using those names. I stopped selling the individual pieces. I sold the value of this set, and I inserted a couple of his one-liners, and like magic, my average order doubled. It wasn't quite 1,000, but it was like 475, so almost doubled overnight. And it was like, man, if I had just watched this recording like 2 months ago, I would have made twice as much money in the last 2 months.
I remember kind of adding on to what you're saying, essentially breaking down sales. Dude, I love sales and marketing because I think it goes hand on hand. And sales is a science, 100%. I agree exactly what you're specifying. I remember when I was in sales, the first time was at SVG, the Storm Ventures Group, and now they do Win the Storm, but he sold it. My previous mentor. Long story short, we would have these calls on Zoom, so there's no face-to-face interaction, I guess. So there's no emotional, but you can carry the tone and all that good stuff. I remember one time the guy was like, do you have like a pitch or something? I'm like, nah, I know certain points to attack. Having said that, I guess for anyone listening, what do you think are crucial points in sales where someone's like, okay, boom, boom, boom?
Yeah. So from studying like tons and tons and tons of pitches that we've worked with for different companies, there are a bunch of things that are common. Obviously, first you need to break the ice and get the customer to a point where they're comfortable with you. Until you break that ice, like nothing you say they're listening to. And we've seen people like have some really interesting tactics for this across like both door to door or in the home, whether it's you're selling in roofing or HVAC or whatever it is. Like people do it different ways, but like you always have to do it. The second thing after that is like getting a sense of what the customer's needs are. And some people will literally do it just with one question. Like if you're selling door-to-door pest control, you might just say, who do you use for the pest control? If you're about to try and sell someone like a massive sunroom, you might have 10 questions that you need to get through in order to figure out what the customer's needs are. Then after that, like there's a little bit of a pitch where you're talking about the value of the product. And then after that, it's like doing some price conditioning and then closing and then buttoning up. But it's like every single pitch we've looked at generally follows that approach, whether they call, like some people call the needs assessment step. Some people call it needs assessment, some people call it survey, some people call it market survey, some people call it qualification, some people call it the now, but it's the same thing under the hood. And we use similar thing for us. We have our own internal names for it, but that's what seems to be in common.
Beautiful. One of the things that I want to kind of dig into is, obviously what you guys are providing is exceptionally well, right? And anyone could definitely benefit from it. But now kind of digging more into, I guess, your mindset and, the way you think. Clearly you're young. And I remember like people say like, oh, Steven, you're 26. But I'm like, yeah, but I feel like I'm 45 mentally, because there's so much experience going on in his head from mentors and experiences. I kind of want to dig into that, in terms of, obviously you're very successful now, but kind of take us through your mindset and when you were from, when you were a kid, what created, Joe Jordan, why is this mentality of an entrepreneur, of a winner? Where did you get that from?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's a deep question. I guess there are a couple of things. I've always been competitive. Played a lot of sports growing up, so that helped.
What sports?
So I did in high school wrestling, football, track.
Nice.
We went on to win a state championship in track. I ran track for a bit of Penn. So
really,
yeah, it was pretty cool. Nice. We won by less than 1/100th of a second. If you go look at the results according to the lasers, like we had the identical time as the second place relay for the 4x4.
Wow.
So that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
So competitive for sure, but I think there are sort of two other like driving factors. Like one is my mind just automatically goes to thinking about like how things can be better, like sitting like waiting to board a plane. It's like, why don't they just board it front to back, things like that. I think everyone's had that one. The earliest example I remember of this is as a kid. Like I remember everyone using different sets of blocks to create their own little towers. And I remember trying to convince everyone to combine their blocks so we could create one big tower. So things like that. And then the other one is I've always been someone who has wanted like other people to achieve their goals. I've always had kind of like a diplomatic bent. I remember in kindergarten, we had this thing where whoever's birthday it was, like we had this big paper and you would lay down on the big paper and you would trace your body and write down like what your favorite things were, so on and so forth. And then you got to pick like 4 friends to color in the trace of your body. And I had 2 friends who both really wanted to be in my group of people to color in for my birthday. And one I was hanging out with later. And so my answer was, well, since I'm hanging out with you later, I'm gonna like let this other person be a part of the group to color in the body. I don't remember who the people were at this point, but just always had like a diplomatic bent. And I think when you combine those 3 together, you get someone who kind of like wants to like sees opportunities to create impact and is like driven to create that impact. And originally like where I thought that drive was gonna go was into like politics. But it was when I really started learning about Elon Musk growing up, where I was like, wow, actually, one of the coolest ways to create impact is actually just to build a business to do it. And Peter Thiel, famous investor, one of the other co-founders of PayPal, his take on this is like, if you want to create an impact through politics, you have to convince just too many people to agree with you. So you have to get the vote, right?
Of course.
But if you want to create an impact through business, all you have to do is convince like a handful of insane people to agree with you, the people in your company, and then you go make it happen. You start making some money, and it's self-reinforcing, and it creates a virtuous cycle of impact. So something sort of switched in my brain somewhere around high school, and I was learning about Elon, where it's like, oh, actually, entrepreneurship is where I want to create impact, and I never expected to be doing it this early, but here we are.
So you being, I guess, with the trajectory that brought you up from a kid to now, and now kind of understanding the way your mind works a little bit, your age is something that, I mean, I don't want to say I'm speaking for myself, but I think I could speak for a few people that are young. You know, so I think sometimes a younger person, you know, 20s, mid-20s or late 20s, they feel like they don't have it figured out yet, right? And sometimes, you know, then maybe they might be into certain bad habits that's refraining them from actually achieving their goal or objective of what they want to do in life. What I'm trying to say is, in essence, I guess for you being who you are and young, how disciplined are you? Were there any moments in your life where, you know, you had kind of ups and downs where you're like, man, you know, I need to overcome this or I need to overcome that if I really want to achieve that? So anyone that's listening, they're like, hey, if I did it, you can do it. Do you have any moments like that?
Absolutely. I definitely still don't have it figured out. That's for sure.
Same here.
Sort of make it up as you go along.
Take it till you make it, right? So
yeah. Yeah. The other one I like is jump off the cliff and build your wings on the way down.
You better build them quick, though.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I could talk about going to college, perhaps. I honestly didn't have a very good time in college. I think I had like one solid semester where I performed like to what I was capable of. I got like the straight A's I knew I was capable of. I was killing it in track. But like first semester, awful. Basically every semester after that, not good. Like I failed my machine learning class, F. Like there was another class where I slept through the midterm and like barely squeaked out with a C and had to like ace everything else in order to not fail. Graduated by the skin of my teeth. Like a couple of classes where like, you know, because of COVID, it went to pass fail, like, and just like had to do some crazy stuff to like not need more time to graduate. I think this especially happens to people who are who have a more entrepreneurial bent. The people with a more entrepreneurial bent are typically not the like classic like rule followers or
I agree.
teachers' pets, like kind of the good eggs, get all the stickers or whatever it is. Like that's not really the archetype of the entrepreneur. If you think about like Jobs was in I mean, he was more of an artist. It's like not wearing shoes, like only eating vegetables, like Airbnb. He's an artist, like not like an engineer or anything like that. Although engineers can also obviously be great founders. And I think like what got me through it was two things. One, I had the sales experience, and I had another way of judging myself. Like if all I had was, well, I'm not doing as well in school as like I want to be, then maybe it's a different story. But because I had actually kicked ass in something outside of like this rule following kind of like path that's set out for everyone, get good grades, then go to a good college, and then get a good job. I had this other thing. It was like, wow, I'm pretty good at sales, and like I can build my own business, and I've sort of tried to go out on my own, and it worked. And so I had that to lean on. And then the second thing was, like, I was following my heart outside of school. One of the reasons I got that F was because instead of studying for the final, like, I reverted my sleep schedule, coding the app for my first company. I was like going to bed at like 8 a.m. and then like waking up at 5 p.m. or whatever it was, and then just coding all through the night, no distractions, couple of monsters, and like a pack of almonds. And that's what I was doing, and I loved it, and I couldn't stop.
You were all in at that point.
Yeah. I don't know if there are any like lessons for people to take away from that, but that's what I'd say is like having some other framework with which to like judge myself, another source of pride and security, and then having just the courage to follow my heart. I think a lot of the people who feel like they don't have it figured out actually have a lot more figured out than they're willing to admit to themselves, because if they just admitted it, they would have to face the fact that they don't have the courage to follow through on it.
Wow.
And there's a quote from Peter Thiel, who I mentioned earlier, that I really like, which is that courage is in shorter supply than genius. And I think that couldn't be more true.
Wow. That's good. I've never heard that quote before. So kind of moving forward with the company now, I actually had a guy maybe a few weeks ago. He came in, he was speaking about his company. He does digital marketing services.
Yeah.
But I think you could give me a more profound answer.
Okay.
AI. People say AI, you get scared. You're like, oh shit, AI. Especially, like, I guess the older generation, they don't really understand it. Are we just in the basis of it? Is this just the beginning? Is there a whole movement? Is there something that we're unaware of in terms of artificial intelligence that can really, help you elevate your business to the next level?
We're just getting started. We're just getting started.
Where do you see it heading towards?
It gets weird.
Like iRobot weird, like the movie, or?
Probably weirder than we can imagine. Do you want to talk more about practical applications now, or how weird it gets in the future?
Let's do practical implications now.
Okay.
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay, we can do the weird one too if you want. That's more fun.
All right, we could do the weird one too.
But yeah, practical applications now. Like, what is AI really good at? I think right now, what AI is really good at is making humans more productive, making them faster, making them more creative, freeing up time for like more high value work. I get like question all the time, like, is AI going to replace us? And like the answer is like not anytime soon. Like what you see across all the fields where innovation is happening: video generation, text generation, image generation, other forms of inference. Like, it's not the case that like you can just get away with asking like an AI to do all your work for you. It's the case that the AI makes you better and faster at your work. It's not that human is better, like AI is better than you. It's that human plus AI is better than human alone or AI alone. And even in chess, where the top computers like now will always beat the top humans, when you combine the humans with the computer, they can still like actually beat just the computer alone, right? And so that's what we see with SIRO as well. It's not like SIRO is going to replace your sales manager. It just makes the sales manager or the sales coach or the sales trainer much more productive. Whereas like it would have taken them 20 hours to see 20 conversations from 20 different reps before, or more if you're factoring in like travel. And the fact that some of those appointments are going to no-show or some of those doors aren't going to answer. You can now do 20 of those conversations in 20 minutes.
Wow.
Because like first of all, it's right at your fingertips. Second of all, we're calling out to you what the key points are so you can get right to the meat, leave a quick comment, and then move on to the next conversation. And so that's where we see the value. And I can talk mostly about our field. In other fields, like filling in information from a customer conversation, helping you brainstorm, like with a ChatGPT or some other large language model. But with SIRO, it's about making the coach faster and smarter. So not only are you going to be 10 times faster using SIRO as a coach, but you're going to be more effective. One of the things that we found that was really surprising to us, but made sense instantly once we realized it, is that like managers, once they find the problem, aren't actually very good at getting reps to change their behavior to fix the problem. And it's not their fault. Like, first of all, you didn't teach the rep to do it that way in the first place. If reps just listened to you when you told them to do something, you wouldn't need SIRO. But sometimes like they just don't know how to follow like your advice, or they straight up don't believe you when you tell them that they'll be more successful if they use a certain tactic.
Yeah.
But what we found is that what really gets reps to change their behavior is when you give them an example from someone kicking their ass. Because the moment they hear someone using something that's 6 places ahead of them on the leaderboard that sold 5 times as much as them last week, they take ownership and responsibility over implementing that tactic. And so that's the other piece that we've focused on. Once we sort of got to the point where like, okay, we can get the manager to find the problem 10 times faster. Now it's like, how do we get you to really fix the problem? It's about attaching examples from the top reps and being able to do that as easily as you might send a text message.
So now, I guess now that's kind of in this moment. Now I want to go back to the whole crazy stuff with the weird stuff. Let's get weird.
It's weird, yeah. So
where do you see that going?
The holy grail of artificial intelligence is what's called AGI, artificial general intelligence.
Okay.
Right now, you have different AIs that are really smart at certain things. You can build one AI to play Mario, but that AI that plays Mario can't play chess. And the one that plays chess beats every human at chess can't play Mario. And this is the pattern, is you create domain-specific AIs. The AI for this, the AI for that. But there's no general AI. There's no AI that's smart like a human is smart. It can learn to ride a bike, it can learn to drive a car, play chess, so on and so forth. So the holy grail is to create an AI that can learn how to do multiple skills across multiple domains effectively. And so once you can do that, then things start to get really weird, and we have no idea what that future looks like. It's like basically you have employees that are just computers in your company.
It's funny you say that. So this was maybe like I think a week ago, and I was having a conversation with a good friend of mine. He's one of my mentors, and he uses AI a lot. And he was like, "Man, there's a call center now for AI." I'm like, "Can you elaborate a little bit?" So they'll call you like the same way a call center, but it's AI. It's an AI voice calling you and selling you and pitching you, and it works. Like you think it's a normal person. He's like, "Listen to this demo." I was like, "Yeah, she did a great job. She closed the client." She's like, "That wasn't a person." That's a great idea. I mean, I don't know if that's up and coming yet, or something you guys possibly might do, or I don't know if you guys are looking into that. But I thought that was really cool. But no, I agree 100%. Having said that, I guess talking about the future, what's your projection in the next 5-10 years with what you're doing? Or I guess 15-20 since you're young.
With what we're doing?
Yeah, and with what you want to do as well as a person.
Yeah, so we talk about it a little bit in our Top Secret Master Plan, which is under our vision on our website. But the vision for SIRO is to create a world where sales is the most accessible path to financial freedom. And we're going to do that by putting world-class coaching in every seller's pocket. Because anyone can succeed in sales. You don't need a specific personality. You don't need a bunch of like innate traits. People have figured out the hard parts. Like there's a script, there's a product out there that you can sell, and if you follow the approach, you learn some basics and you go sell that product, you can make crazy amounts of money. At Door to Door-Con earlier this year, like we saw, there was an 18-year-old who won a golden door. It's like just out of high school, no college degree, making multiple six figures, like at 18. But most people never get the mentorship they actually need to realize those results. So what we see now is we have the 80-20 rule governs sales success, right? 20% of the sales reps generate 80% of the sales and then take home 80% or more of the commissions. And that means just 20% of the commissions are left over for the other 80% of sales reps. And the reason is because there's that coaching bottleneck. Only a handful of people actually get the coaching they need or are good enough to figure it out on their own. So we want to disrupt the 80-20 rule.
And then in terms of yourself as a person, where do you want to be aside from the company? Do you have other projections, or were you looking at running for government? I don't know.
When we accomplish that and we exit, I'll probably just start another company.
Okay.
I've decided I like starting companies. I mean, it's painful. There are definitely parts of it that aren't fun. But I think maybe fun isn't really the right word. I think it's more that having everything on the line all the time makes you feel alive. And like sometimes like part of being alive is like some things suck. But I'd rather feel the exhilaration and the misery than feel numb.
I agree. I know exactly what you're talking about. It's like when you have those days, and the process of an entrepreneur 100% has all those emotions.
Yeah.
It is a thrill. I remember when I was doing, I wrote my book, for example. I wrote the book, and you think there's like a euphoric feeling when you write the book, but anyone can write a book. It's like a dissertation or a thesis. And you wrote the book, cool, but the fun part was the journey, the headaches, the accelerating stuff. So I completely understand what you're saying. Having said that, for someone that's young and wants to start a company, how would you advise or kind of guide them to say, hey man, don't do this, do that?
Yeah. So I'm trying to figure out what generalizes, because I have a lot of like tech company specific advice.
I guess without going into too much detail on the technology aspect of it, I guess business overall has principles, and variables. How would you kind of approach that manner for someone that just wants to start something, to have an idea and how to execute it?
Yeah. The biggest thing is focus. Like, you think like you can just work more hours and get all the things done that need to get done, but that will never be the case. There will always be way more that needs to get done than you can actually do. But if you really zoom in, most of that stuff that needs to get done doesn't need to get done. And it's very easy to fall into the trap of just like checking boxes and going through like the motions of building a company, like, oh, we need to have this, we need to have that, we need to have this. It's like at any given stage of the company, there's probably really just one, maybe two things that you need to be spending your energy on. And if you just like solve the really hard problems, you'll probably like have a good outcome. But if you solve a bunch of the little problems and never get around to the big hairy ones, that's when you start to get in trouble, because like, I don't know, the value of the company is just the sum of like the difficulty of all the problems that you solve. That's what people pay you to do, right?
I love that quote.
Solve problems.
The value of the company is based on the problem you can solve.
Yeah, the sum of all the difficulty of the problems that you solve. Yeah,
it's a really great. Could you just make that up, or?
I think I may have read something similar to that somewhere. Good. Yeah,
that's really good. Wow.
Yeah, I definitely didn't just make it up now.
Yeah. So speaking of which, I guess in the process of the trajectory of creating what you created, you have a partner, correct?
Yep.
I guess I'm intrigued too. Where when people come into business together, is it, sunshine and flowers, or was it kind of difficult when you guys kind of merged and created what you were creating?
Yeah, so my co-founder, Jake, working with him, one of the best decisions I made. Absolute badass. Also someone who can sell and can code. It's a really rare combination. Definitely wasn't always smooth. I mean, we also had a pretty funny story of how we met. I mean, we met basically as competitors.
Okay.
Before we built SIRO, we were building competing apps for Cutco. Cutco was still doing all their calling off of pen and paper. That's where they had their leads, was on pen and paper. If I'm a manager, I have no idea how many leads any of my reps have unless I ask them.
No CRM system, nothing?
No CRM for the leads, nothing. And one of the interesting things was, when I was calling, I would get really anxious using this pen and paper, because it was like, okay, I had to call someone, then spend a minute or two finding the next person. And deciding to call someone was actually the anxiety-inducing part. Calling someone's fine. Once the phone starts ringing, it's whatever. But it's dialing, deciding, okay, maybe this person, that person. So what I found was, when I just spent the first 30, 45 minutes of a 2-hour phone call session, just writing down in order, number 1, call this person, number 2, call this person, number 3, call this person. I made more total calls than I would if I just started calling right off the bat. I was more effective on the phones, so I booked more demos, and it was more fun. It sucked less. So that was actually the idea for the first company that I started was, okay, let's actually get this into an app. Let's get all your leads in there, and let's have you queue them all up and then dial through them like a music playlist. So it was called Queue. My co-founder, Jake, at the time, was building a competing app called Knife Life. Basically a very similar idea. All the contacts go into the app on your phone. It tracks all the history. And I don't think he started with this queuing idea, but added the queuing idea later. So it actually ended up being very similar functionality. He called me up one day and said, "Do you want to work together?" And my initial reaction was, "No, I'm just going to beat you." But he called me back 15 minutes later and was like, "Okay, I heard you on this point, this point, this point, this point, this point," and then had a rebuttal for each of those points. And it was like, okay, this guy is really sharp. And it started off a long process of us sort of getting to know each other, feeling each other out, learning how to work together. And it ended up working well, but it doesn't always work out well. I think one of the top 2 reasons that at least tech startups fail is co-founder disagreements. So it is really important to get that right. I ended up being lucky that I took a swing and found someone great, but
who gave you in that moment? Would you guys kind of motivate each other? And that's sometimes when you're going through the process of building a company, was it kind of he needs a push, you're there for him, or you need a push, he's there for you? Was it kind of you guys always lifting each other up and really getting it done?
Yes, we definitely have vented to each other plenty, still vent to each other plenty. I mean, we have 1 or 2 2.5-hour phone calls a week still at this point. And definitely we did those things, but I think both of us got more inspiration from our users.
Wow.
Because someone telling you that this thing, SIRO, helped them figure out why they weren't closing deals at lunch, and they went from selling 0 in the morning and then having 3 sales in the afternoon. It was because of my app. That's wow. We're onto something here. And we need to create more of that. And like writing our top secret master plan too, like reminding ourselves why we built this and getting it on paper, like that gave us a really solid foundation and resolve. And so
I agree too, because in a way you're helping out the consumer, right, in the sales aspect of it, but it's creating a ripple effect because they're making more money, they're feeding their wife, their girlfriend, their kids, right? It's you're helping hundreds of people. I kind of understand where you're coming from too, because when I host the American Dream event that you guys are sponsoring, thank you, by the way, for supporting what we're doing in the community. That means
Absolutely.
a lot. The first year we had a lot of people reach out to us as well and saying, hey, you've motivated me, you changed my life. I heard so-and-so speak. If they say, Steven, did you sell your garage company for 9 figures? I said, no, but I know someone that did, Tommy Mello.
Yeah.
Or Steven, are you an AI genius? No, I'm not, but you are. I'm just the glue and the nucleus, the connectivity and the bridge to provide value. And I think providing value specifically in this case, I think you guys found a solution to a really big problem. And I think that helps a lot of people because people are really scared in sales. When you were first introduced to sales, were you kind of like that as well? Were you kind of like scared, or were you just all in?
Oh yeah, I was scared. I mean, sales is simple, but that doesn't mean it's easy. Like, it's hard. My first sales conversations, I was literally reading from the script with the manual out, like in front of the customer.
Yeah. Did you close them?
Did I close the first one? No, I think my very first one, she wanted to think about it and get back to me. I closed my second one, which was my mom. That was easy.
That counts.
That counts. I think my first appointment, she did end up buying later. And then again, when I was a manager, when I went to give my first big talk in front of the team that I had recruited, because I was recruiting and so forth while I was still at college. And then when I finished up the semester, then I finally got in front of the team and got everyone together. When I first got up in front of the room to fire up the team, my hand was literally shaking so much that I couldn't read my notes.
You're pumped, your adrenaline, I understand.
Yeah, the nerves. I was so nervous.
They say the brain, your brain confuses being nervous and being excited. So every time I get nervous and I'm speaking on stage, I tell myself I'm just excited.
Yeah.
So it works.
Yeah, big time.
Yeah.
And so I learned not to hold things. But then eventually, the nerves go away. You sort of develop a callus to it. It's the same with being told no. Develop a callus.
Repetition.
You just have to be willing to suck it up for a while. Because there are little tips and tricks you can use like that. That's a great one. While you are getting used to it. But I think the only real long-term thing is just to get told no a lot, just to do public speaking a lot, just to rip off the Band-Aid. I think there's a term for it actually. It's exposure therapy. It's a real thing. It's in order to get someone over a fear, you just gradually expose them to that thing in manageable increments. And sometimes you don't get a chance to have a manageable increment, a small taste before you jump straight into the pool, but same idea.
Absolutely. So with what you're doing now and what you created, I guess in that aspect of sales, right? We're talking about something that significantly can help take a company and maybe even 2x it, right, in terms of revenue with implementing that. If someone's watching this and they're interested, I guess my question is more of a track record, but why should they sign up with SIRO? What are the benefits of it, ideally?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we had a company, Rose Roofing, that in 2023 3x'd.
Wow.
And they attributed that to SIRO.
It's amazing.
We've had companies increase their productivity anywhere from in the 20s of percents to over 50%. Like without adding headcount, it's just like you sell that much more with the people you have in seat. And so in pure business terms, like it's very straightforward. Like you want to sell more, it's like, okay, here, like we can help you with that. But I think there's a more important reason, which is like, if you want to build a successful company in the long run, a company is just a collection of people. Like that's what a company is, like a collection of people that do stuff together. What we will never be able to measure is like how, in the long run, investing in your people like that does, not just for your company, but for their families, for the other companies they eventually move on to. And not just the professional growth, but the personal growth that goes hand in hand with the professional growth, especially in sales. Like when someone grows in sales, that shows up everywhere in their life. And so I think it's like, if you want to like sell more, absolutely. If you want to really invest in your people and create like a really unique company, then we can also help with that.
Beautiful. To kind of, I know we're kind of end on time, but to kind of close it out, is there any closing statements or anything you'd like to say to the viewer, perhaps watching, listening, maybe that 15-year-old kid that's big into technology, or anyone just curious?
Yeah. Just start doing stuff. Like, I started coding with side projects. My dad tried to convince me not to do Cutco, but I did it anyway. My friends tried to convince me not to come back to Cutco. They staged like an intervention, but I did it anyway. Especially if you're going to go down this entrepreneurial path, like there are going to be a lot of things in your life, not just people, who try and stop you. But at the end of the day, the only way that you'll get anywhere is just by trying stuff. Go and do that side project. Go and knock that first door. Take that sales role. Start doing that research. Start selling that product, whatever it is. Like, just start trying it, because courage is in shorter supply than genius. Most people surprise themselves with what they're capable of once they just commit to it.
Beautiful. And the clap was perfect, too.
That was pretty sweet.
Awesome, man. I appreciate it. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to this amazing American Dream podcast. I'll see you guys on the next one.